Welcome to Between the Lines. This is John Myers.
And Jack Tobin. Today is Saturday, February 27th, 2021.
Today we have some big topics ahead of us, including the Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson trade rumors, the NBA All-Star Game, and we'll be able to give an insight to games around college basketball, the NHL, and the NBA.
Speaking of the NBA, John, did you watch the matchup between the Lakers and Jazz this weekend?
Yeah, I did. I was really surprised. I'm not going to lie. I thought that the Lakers got blown out by a landslide. I don't know I forget the final score, but I think it was at least 25 points. The Jazz are a lot better than I thought they were. I think the Lakers they're obviously missing Anthony Davis, so that's kind of a big blow to the team, but I thought they looked a little lackluster. Their defense seemed sloppy. They couldn't really score. And I thought overall it was just a very poor performance by the Lakers. What about you?
Yeah, without AD, they really couldn't stop Gobert at all. The Jazz are a great three-point shooting team. I think they have one of the best percentages from the three-point line in the league. And I was just kind of wondering, do you seriously think the Jazz are contenders to make a postseason run to the final?
From the looks of that game, I know, like we mentioned, the Lakers were without Anthony Davis, who's a big defensive threat. He's obviously able to just his presence in the game is enough to make a team miss a couple shots here and there. But no, I think the Jazz looked really good, and they're the top seed right now in the West, and I think they looked great. I could easily see them holding that spot for the rest of the season, and making a solid playoff run.
Yeah, I think if Mike Conley, what's making this all grow and stay compared to last year at the bubble, they had some struggles. Mike Conley wasn't playing great last year, but if he continues playing good, the chemistry on that team, he's such a veteran. I feel like that team can easily make it to the finals and make a push.
Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised at Mike Conley's play. I think he had 14 points that game, which wasn't a lot, but he off the start, I think he went 4 for 4 from threes. Just kind of jump starting the offense, and I think that set the tone for the rest of the game.
Yeah. And then for the Lakers, do you think without AD, I don't really know how long he's out, but do you think that without AD, do you think their seed will fall by a decent amount with this stretch?
Yes, I really do think that without Anthony Davis, the Lakers just are not as good. Obviously they have LeBron, this second best basketball player of all time. I think that they don't really have a lot of role players around him. They have a few guys here and there, but without Anthony Davis, putting up 25 points and 10 rebounds a game, I think that they're just struggling. And it really showed the other night against the Jazz.
Yeah, I feel like the centers that they have behind AD, Montrezl Harrell, he's good. He's a little small. He can't really guard like Rudy Gobert. And Marc Gasol's old, and I feel like he's not quick enough to guard Gobert either, even though Gobert is a big defense player. If they get someone like Gobert with that size and in their prime with that quickness, I feel like without AD, they can't stop him at all.
Yeah. All right. So, continuing with the NBA theme, the NBA All-Star Game is coming up, and the NBA All-Star roster was recently posted. Have you gotten a chance to look at the roster yet?
Yeah, I looked at it briefly. I didn't go really in depth, but having D-Book added later, I thought he deserved it. I couldn't believe he wasn't at least part of the reserves to start with. I thought Levine deserved it. So I feel like they went back. I also thought Sabonis deserved it because he had a really good season again.
Well,
I feel like
Sabonis got added, didn't he?
Yeah, he was like both. They were both added, and they were off originally, which I thought crazy.
Yeah.
What about you?
Who did Sabonis replace?
I can't remember. Is it KD? Is he injured? Or is he back?
It was KD, because I know
it was KD.
Yeah, I know Booker got in with Anthony Davis being out.
Yeah.
Um, but I like you said, I was really happy to see Zach LaVine made the All-Star game. Just
Yeah.
as a Bulls fan, I think that's pretty cool. He's been going off this season is an understatement. I mean, he's basically single-handedly carrying the Bulls right now to the sixth seed. Right there, they're sixth in the East.
Yeah. Yeah. Around there.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have you know, I think they have a solid team, but I think it's really shown that Zach LaVine is definitely a leader on that team, and it's
Yeah.
make the All-Star game.
Yeah, I thought he should have made it last year, especially being in Chicago and not having a single bowl in it. But I'm glad he got in it this year. He definitely deserves it.
Yeah. Do you think that the Bulls have a chance to do anything in the playoffs?
No, no. I'm a Bulls fan. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they'll get past the first round or if they're lucky the second round. I just don't see them beating like Philly or like the Nets or another big team in the East like Miami. I just
Yeah.
because there would be a low seed. I don't think they'll be able to get past them.
Yeah, I think that in order for them to make a deep playoff run or at least get a higher seed, they really need to get another star aside Zach LaVine. It's kind of tough for like one guy to single-handedly carry a team to a championship or at least a playoff run.
Yeah, I really don't think it's this year. I think it's been a great year for a stepping stone. But I think in the next 2 or 3 years is when maybe Wendell Carter he starts producing more as he matures. Maybe their first round pick this year. What's his name? I forgot. Patrick. I think that's his name, Patrick. I'm forgetting his name. Do you know the third overall pick by the Bulls? Patrick.
Oh, God, I can't think of it.
God, we went
Done much this
completely
season.
himself.
He hasn't really done a whole lot this season.
Yeah, I know. Let me get the research team on it.
Yeah, no, but I like you said, I think that this year has really been a good year. Zach LaVine has, despite having a good season last year, this has really been like a breakout season, I think, for him.
Yeah.
He's really shown what he can do, and I think, like we mentioned earlier, with another star aside him, the Bulls could be a dangerous team in the East this year, or in the years coming, I should say.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think this year is not their year. The next couple, maybe next year or the year after, is when they could make a run. Patrick Williams, the third overall pick, could grow. Wendell Carter could grow, and maybe even Cam Hutchinson, a mid first round pick from a couple years ago. I feel like if they get some of these guys to grow, they could seriously make a run in the next couple years.
Yeah, I mean Kobe White too is another guy that
Kobe White, yeah.
Potential to do something good.
And then maybe they find someone free agency because Chicago's a pretty nice city. It could be a good destination from a big star in free agency.
Well, I know there's the Rockets just recently cut DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, I don't know because the Bulls won't probably go anywhere this year. I don't know if that would be great for them this year.
Yeah, I would.
He's on the older side, so
yeah,
I don't know if that would be a great target.
He's kind of on the decline in his career. I don't
think
signing, but it's just it's an option for the Bulls, I think.
Yeah, it's a name out there.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the some NBA predictions. So with the current standings predictions in the league right now, do you think that they will change at all, or do you think there'll be anyone that kind of squeaks into the playoff bracket, or how do you think that's going to look?
I think it's going to look pretty similar to what it is right now, especially at the top. Out in the West, I think the Clippers will probably stay where they're at. I feel like once the Lakers get AD after their big fall, which I think will happen, they will probably start losing games here. And then once AD gets back fully healthy, I think they'll jump back up. I think the Jazz have pretty much locked down the first seed as long as they don't lose someone to injury. They just have I think I saw online that they have the easiest schedule for the second half of the season, which is crazy considering them being so dominant so far.
Yeah.
And now in the East, I think Miami will have a good shot, but I think the Nets will win the whole thing. I just don't see once Durant gets back. I don't see Durant, Kyrie, and Harden get stopped.
Yeah. So do you think? Well, that's another topic. Is do you think that the Nets? I mean, it's almost as if they've shown more potential with Harden and Katie out this year, which I think has been kind of interesting. Obviously, James Harden and Kevin Durant are, some of the top scorers in the league. I would argue top 10 scorers in the league. So to have them out, you'd think it'd be a big hit to the team, but they seem to be doing better without them than they were with them.
Yeah, I think they're actually missing Kyrie and KD. I think Harden has been playing the whole time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Harden playing the whole time, and I think he had like 44 points the other night. And then they had some people off the bench that dropped like 26 that usually don't get playing time. And I think they're actually finding more role players that could really give them more depth and give them some more like kickstart energy in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right. So moving around the sports world, the NHL has obviously started their season up. They're kind of in the beginning stages of the season, so I would say they've been gone for a couple weeks now. But a big game the other night was Blackhawks and Blue Jackets. Did you watch that game?
Yes, I did watch that game. As a Blackhawks myself, I thought the Hawks played great. They ended up winning 2-0. Subban in goal had some crazy saves. He played great considering the Hawks are still trying to find their guy in goal between Lankinen and Subban. I thought Kane's actually one goal away from having 400 careers, so I think that's pretty cool. And one other thing, I was watching some of the young players in the forward line, and Brandon Hagel really stood out. He looked like a young Patrick Kane to me. He's small, quick, agile, and a couple of the shots he took last night, or not last night, it was Thursday night. They really look like Patrick Kane. He had one that stood out in my mind where he went down to a knee and kind of just hit it to himself and shot it, which it was a nice first shot. It was sick, but I thought he looked exactly like Kane.
Yeah, I know what player you're talking about, and I did think that he showed a lot of potential. I think he's someone that could obviously grow in the next couple of years. And with the Blackhawks, you have some great veteran leadership in Patrick Kane, and then you guys got guys like Jonathan Toews, Brent Seabrook, all of those guys. I mean, just obviously not same position and everything, but just kind of getting that leadership in the locker room. So yeah, I think he could be someone that grows a lot in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Jonathan Toews actually isn't with the team right now. He's out with. He hasn't been there the whole season. He's out with some they have not disclosed. It's a health problem.
Well, yeah.
And then Seabrook hasn't played at all. He's just been scratched every game. But guys like Keith and Keith Kane.
I'm just talking about getting that like leadership. Obviously, they're not playing right now, but just giving that they're still there to give them advice and just lead them through just kind of how it all goes.
Yeah. And I had a question for you. Do you think if Toews comes back and then maybe if we got Kirby Dach back, what do you think the Hawks season will look like? Because currently they're either on the bubble for the playoffs or they're just past the bubble for the playoffs to get in. What do you think?
Well, I thought so. I checked the standings earlier today, and right now they're 11-6-4. So, to basically 11-10. And I think they were, I want to say like third or fourth.
Yeah, so they're on the bubble. I think they're in fourth right now, which is I think with these weird standings that they have because of COVID. I think they're in. I don't fully know because the standings they have the Canadians only has 6 teams, and then I think the rest have like 8 teams or 8 or 9. They're not all even. So I don't fully know if they're in or not, but they're right in the center of their division, looking good. And my question to you was, do you think that the Hawks have a decent chance at the playoffs, considering them mid-table right now and with these weird divisions? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, I definitely think they have a chance to make it in the playoffs. As you mentioned, they're missing some of their key guys who, once they come back, will make a big impact. And it seems like the Blackhawks are they're holding their own, if not, I mean, even doing better than that. Um, they seem to be fine. It's not like they've hit a rut or anything with these guys being out. So I think once they'll be back, they'll be a great team.
Yeah, as like in the fans' perspective, we just kind of have a tough time because we know nothing about Taves. We had no clue if he's going the ball, if he's retiring. We don't know anything. Then it's kind of a tough loss for the back. He broke his wrist or something in his arm while playing for Canada in the World Juniors at the start of the season. So we didn't even get to see him at all. And I feel like if we had those two guys in the lineup, the Hawks would be playing great right now. But at the same time, it's great seeing these young guys because I feel like the Hawks are like 2 or 3 or 4 years away from competing again. So it's great seeing how these young guys are playing, and a lot of them are playing well, which is very surprising.
Yeah, they're definitely a young team, and the fact that they're playing how they are now, I mean, they seem to be they're not showing their age really. So I think in the next years they'll definitely be a great team.
Yeah, I had one more closing question too. And what do you think between the three goalies we got? It's mainly two between Subban and Lankinen. Who do you think the Hawks should go with moving forward?
Just from watching that game the other night, I think that Subban really played great. I mean, he had a couple of great saves. Uh, shut out the Blue Jackets. I think he played great. So just basing solely off of that, I think that I could easily see him being the starter moving forward.
Yeah, I've watched more like throughout the whole season. Subban had some tough games early on. He had a great game here, and Lankinen. I feel like Lankinen just plays great. He's had multiple shutouts. He moves around the net, I think, amazingly. His butterfly is great. So I honestly don't know. I think they're still having a competition for the rest of the year, and then moving into next year to decide.
Yeah, I think nothing's set right now. They're still fighting it out.
Going back to the hardwood, Iowa and Michigan matched up against each other in college basketball this weekend, and Iowa played Michigan at Michigan. Iowa was ranked ninth. Michigan was ranked third. Michigan ended up pulling away with about 10 minutes left. It was a close game up until then, and Michigan ended up winning by around 15 to 20 points. I'm a big Iowa fan, so I watched it, and Iowa had a tough loss early in the first half. They lost Jack Nungy, their backup center. It looks like he did something to his ACL in his right leg, which isn't good because he tore his ACL in his right leg last year. So he's out for the season. They came out and said, and going in depth under the game, Joe Wieskamp, who's a big player for the Hawkeyes, he had a pretty quiet game. I remember step back three and maybe a dunk from him. He was pretty quiet. Jordan Bohannon was pretty quiet from three. He had a couple at the start of the game, but kind of stepped away. And the best player in the country, Luka Garza, in my opinion, he had a very quiet game. His friend from his hometown in D.C., they actually matched up against each other. The kid at Michigan named Dickerson, he's a freshman, and he completely locked up Garza. He's 7'1", Luka Garza 6'11". Luka Garza depends on his physicality, and Dickerson, being as big as he was, just completely stopped him. Luka Garza's main points comes from posting down and doing different post moves. He's great with his touch. I think the best touch I've ever seen from a college big man. And Dickerson forced most of his points from the 3-point line or mid range because Dickerson just had such physicality on him. And I feel like if Iowa runs into something like that in a tournament or the Big Ten tournament, they will need to figure out another way other than Garza to score. They can depend on that 3-point shooting. Everyone else depends on 3-point shooting other than Garza on that team. And Michigan did a great job forcing them drive, which Iowa drove, and they got some points, but then they eventually started missing contested layups and different things, and that's when Michigan really started pulling away. And not to mention, Michigan, they also have the number one recruiting class coming next, which is crazy. So Michigan is a team to look out for in the future.
Taking a step off the basketball court and looking into something we haven't gone over so far, which is the NFL. Obviously, the offseason this year I think, has been pretty crazy. Um, a couple weeks ago, we saw a huge trade in Matthew Stafford going to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for Jared Goff and some draft picks. What did you think about that trade, Jack?
Yeah, I thought the Lions completely ripped off the Rams. I mean, they got Jared Goff, a young guy who can still prove himself. He had a good, I think it was second or third year. He's kind of fallen off since. But they also, on top of that, got 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. So that's a lot of draft capital with a young QB that can still pan out. For I think he's like Stafford's like 31 or 32. I mean, he's still got 17, but that's a lot for aging quarterback. What about you?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that the Lions won that trade for sure. I think Stafford is the better quarterback out of the two, but I don't think that the difference between those two quarterbacks is 2 first-round draft picks and a third. I think that the Rams just gave up so much for that there. I think that Stafford's obviously going to help the team, but I think that giving away those draft picks, especially to those 2 first-round draft picks, is really going to affect their future.
Yeah, I feel like the Rams are going all in for these next 2 years. I mean, they have a solid team, and they just got a quarterback that can actually throw the ball. I think they lost in the first round in the playoffs, and they had some back then. Golf or did Golf play?
Um,
Golf played the regular season,
yes.
or Golf played the playoffs. He did not play Week 17, which was a big game.
Yeah, when they lost to the Packers, I believe it was.
Yeah. So Golf did play,
Yeah.
and I think over the past couple of years, McVay just kind of got sick of Golf overthrowing balls or overthrowing passes, underthrowing. Feel like they just needed a change at quarterback, and now I feel like they're major contenders.
Yeah, no, I mean they have, I think, the best, or one of the best, if not the best defense in the league. Last
Yeah.
year they really showed that with a couple of big name stars, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, just to name some, are just kind of leaders on that defense. So their defense, I think, is set. It's just their offense that clearly, specifically the quarterback spot, that needed some work. So when being that they only, in terms of players, take away the draft capital, I think that they won that trade if it was simply a Stafford for Goff trade.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They have their offense is mediocre. I think they could use some weapons on their offense. Obviously, they have, they got Robert Woods out there, who, yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know. It's kind of tough to say what their offense is going to look like in the future and how they're going to perform. But I think Stafford will definitely be a nice addition to that offense. But in terms of the overall trade, I think that the Lions definitely won that.
Yeah. I think the Rams, they have a decent receiving core, which definitely could get them far. Their O line, I know they have an aging tackle. I forgot his name. Well, I think he's like 37 or 38. I don't know too much about their line. So I know they have a young running back as well who played well last season. So I think their offense is like pretty decent now with Stafford there. So I think they're going to be doing just fine.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. As long as their defense continues to hold up and Stafford performs how Stafford usually performs, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Some other big trade news. Recently, Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson has not requested a trade, but he has put out options for teams that he would be willing to go to in the situation of a trade. One of the big names as a fan of this team was the Chicago Bears. Now, obviously, the Chicago Bears are looking for a quarterback. They have been for a while. The Trubisky situation has not really panned out. They haven't really gotten anything out of them. They got, 2 playoff berths, but they haven't done anything within those 2 years. So they're looking for a quarterback. Now, the the thing that I'm looking at is that um, with Wilson possibly being a potential quarterback option next year for the Bears, obviously there are some other quarterbacks on the market. And I just wanted to get your opinion on which quarterbacks you think would be the best fit for the Bears.
Yeah, I think the two major contenders is Watson and Wilson. I don't really know any agent quarterbacks out there this year. I don't think there's too many. So I would probably go after Wilson. I think Watson you would have a better future with in the next couple of years because Wilson's older. But I think the Bears are honestly a quarterback and maybe a couple O-line pieces away from contending. I mean, they're probably going to cut Massey and Leno at tackle to free up some space because they're aging and making a lot of money. But if the Bears get someone like Wilson who has that playoff experience, he's won a Super Bowl, he's been to two, he's almost always a Pro Bowler. I think I think he would fit very well in Nagy's scheme, and I think he will be a huge leader in that locker room to really help.
I would really have to kind of disagree with that. I think that Deshaun Watson would be the best option for the Bears. I think that the Bears, they don't really have with the whole Allen Robinson situation on whether or not he's going to get re-signed or franchise tagged. Their wide receiver core isn't stellar. They have Darnell Mooney as a young star who I think has a lot of potential to grow. I just don't think he's there yet. Their running back, I think, is set in David Montgomery. They'll have Tariq Cohen coming back next year, which I think will be a great addition. Probably hopefully one of the best running back duos in the league. So yeah, obviously the running back situation for the Bears is pretty solid at this situation. It's just their wide receivers that are going to need some work. As I mentioned, Darnell Mooney, I think he'll be great in the coming years. He's just not there yet. And with the uncertainty of Allen Robinson, their wide receiver situation is really kind of unclear for next year. And I think bringing Watson in would really help that, no matter who their wide receivers are, who his threats are to throw to. I think that he's kind of one of those guys that can just perform under any situation. You look at him in Houston, he didn't really have much in Houston. He had Will Fuller, who was his leading target, and he was out for half the season, and Deshaun Watson still threw for 4,800 yards. So, I mean, there wasn't really well, actually, I misspoke. They had Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, who kind of, I think, were the top two on that team. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they're still not neither of those guys, I think, are number one receivers on a team. But despite that fact, Watson still went out and performed. Now look at Russell Wilson. He's kind of had guys throughout his whole career that he's been able to throw to. And I think that with the uncertainty of the Bears wide receivers, it would really be just kind of a guaranteed good trade for the Bears to get Deshaun Watson.
Although Wilson's had some targets to throw to in these past couple of years, he has never had an O-line there. He is scrambling every single play in Seattle. I mean, he's got Metcalf now and Lockett, but before Metcalf, pretty much all he had was Lockett because they had the aging Baldwin from the Super Bowl teams. And Wilson's just an established guy he knows what it is to go to the Super Bowl. Well, and I agree with you that the Bears are also need receiver. I forgot to say that earlier. And I don't think Robinson will come back. They might franchise tag him and trade him, but I think they will have to have someone at the receiver position. And I think Wilson has also had some experience with dealing with the battle line, like I said, and not having too great of wide receivers before Metcalf.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, with how they had an aging Doug Baldwin. Around that time though is when the Seahawks were really performing well. I mean, they went to back-to-back Super Bowls. They were just kind of I would argue one of the best teams in the league, obviously, if they won the Super Bowl. But that was mainly based on their defense. They had that big defense with Cam Chancellor Sherman, Earl Thomas, Bobby Wagner. Well, that just proves that the time that the Seahawks were really succeeding is when Wilson had those weapons. And since then, obviously, like you added, the addition of DK Metcalf has really helped the team, but they haven't really done anything. I mean, they had a first round exit this year out of the playoffs after the Seahawks started off insanely hot. Wilson was a projected MVP winner within, the first couple weeks, and then he just started to decline, and he didn't really do anything after that. And I just worry that, as a fan, if the Bears were to sign Deshaun Watson, or not Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, is he going to perform to those standards that he was performing a couple years ago?
Yeah. I kind of look at it as like, those teams that they went to the Super Bowl with, they had a great defense. Bears have one of the best defenses in the league, top 10. And I mean, I'm trying to think about, they had Marshawn Lynch. I can't remember their tight end as a weapon. They had Doug Baldwin, who was never that good, in my opinion. Jermaine Kearse, these are big players like Anthony Miller on team, just kind of like role players. They never had a star on those teams, which is kind of what the Bears have.
Yeah, I would agree. I just think that, I mean, even as you mentioned, Deshaun Watson for the future is the better option. And I'm trying to look forward to the future. They see how their draft picks line up. Obviously, this year they have, I think, the 20th, I want to say, 20th overall pick.
Yeah, they're the 20th.
So I think that they could get some guys for the future, some young stars at wide receiver who would really kind of tie in together with Deshaun Watson. And the problem with Russell Wilson is that, they don't have a lot of cap space this year. So if they were to get Russell Wilson, who are they going to get for the near future to try and make that run before Wilson's career is over? Deshaun.
Yeah,
Watson,
but you could say the same with Watson. Watson has not a contract. He was extended. He's not on his rookie deal no more.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's still a young guy. I think Wilson's probably up in his early 30s, 31, 32. Watson's like, late 20s, probably 27, I want to say, around there, most likely. I mean, they could easily get 5 more years out of Watson than they could out of Wilson. So I just think for the future, it's a safer option for someone that's going to perform over time. Whereas Wilson, I could easily see declining within the next couple of years. So if they're signing him even to like a 1 or 2 year deal, he could easily be underperforming for those next couple of years.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying with the future, but also the Bears' window is small. I mean, Khalil Mack is getting up there. He's not performing as well as he was a couple of years ago. Akeem Hicks is old. The Bears' defense is aging in the front seven. And I feel like Wilson, he's the guy to win now. He has the Super Bowl experience, the playoff experience. And I feel like if they don't win now, talking about the future with Watson really doesn't matter because in the future, the Bears will have nothing but Watson.
Well, but do you think that right now the Bears have what is taking, do you think that the Bears are only a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl?
I think they're a quarterback and maybe a decent wide receiver and then draft some tackles to see how they play. I think they are because we're getting James Daniels back from injury. Whitehair can go back to his normal position. And then they had a couple of young guys play good at the O-line in the second half of the season. The Bears' O-line in the second half of the season was not bad at all. They were actually pretty decent from what I remember. The first half was very bad.
Yeah.
But the second half, they started playing very well.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I just don't know if I'm agreeing with you on the fact that the Bears are only a quarterback away from, making a deep Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I think the Bears are a quarterback wide out and some tackles, which
that's a lot.
If you get a guy if you get a guy in the draft, if you don't give up the first round this year, if you give up 2 or 3 future firsts and not the one this year, out at the 20th pick, and in the second, third, and fourth round, draft some offensive linemen, I think we're set there.
Well, yeah, I guess. I don't know, but then the other option too is, do the Bears trade up for a quarterback in the draft? Now, obviously, they're not going to get someone great at the 20th pick. I think most of the probably top 5 quarterbacks in the draft will be gone by then. But do you think that it's worth it for the Bears to trade up in the draft to try and get a young quarterback?
No, I really don't think it is because it probably takes 2, 3, or 4 years to develop that quarterback. And then Khalil Mack is in his mid or upper 30s by then. Akeem Hicks is 100% retired. The defense ages. The wideouts probably might be past their prime by then. David Montgomery will definitely be past his prime. I feel like the team will just be too old by that time the guy finally develops. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really don't think that the Bears, I mean, obviously they have a couple of stars on the defense that are getting up there, as you mentioned, Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks. I still think that they have a young enough defense to where, even if Khalil Mack retires within the next 5 years, say, which I don't think he will personally, but say that happens, I mean, they're still going to have a good linebacker core in Roquan Smith. So they keep Danny Trevathan.
Danny Trevathan's old, bro. He's in his 30s.
Yeah, but I think he'll still be with the team for a good couple of years.
I think he'll be with the team maybe 1 year because he was already kind of on like a see how you play contract, like a tryout contract. Not a tryout, but like see how you play 1 or 2 years. So I think he's got 1 more year left on his contract, and maybe they give him another 1 year contract, and then I think he's gone.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. They do have some young stars. So you look at Jalen Johnson, the cornerback. I think he's obviously got great potential. I know Kyle Fuller's getting kind of up there now too in age, but I think he's still got some good years left in him. Eddie Jackson isn't that old. Now, whether or not the Bears want to keep him or not based on performance is a different topic. But
yeah,
if, purely based off of age, I think that he could still be a part of this defense for a while. I don't know. I think that if they were to trade up, it wouldn't be the end of the world. They wouldn't. It's not like they'd be giving up all hope with the good defense that they had right now and the okay offense. I think their offense is super young. They have some great guys that'll be with them for a while. And then I think they have some great stars in the defense. So if they were to trade up, I think it would, it could pan out, honestly.
Yeah, I just feel personally that if you don't get a guy like Trevor Lawrence or maybe Justin Fields, you won't be able to win in the next 4 years. And then everyone's out of prime by then. I know they're young, but that youngness, that you can only stay around for so long before one of the guys gets injured, before like one of the running backs just has taken too many hits. I just feel like if you go after someone that's not Trevor Lawrence or maybe Justin Fields, which is probably the top 2 or 3 picks, you won't get a guy that's ready to play.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. So I guess we'll just agree to disagree on that. I'm not really sure. I think that
we'll find out.
Option. Obviously, you think that Wilson is the best option, but that's just dependent on what we think of the current status of the team, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. So now finishing off with kind of a weekly segment that we'll like to be continuing throughout the entirety of this podcast. A little segment that we currently don't really have a set name for. We'll just kind of call it Team of the Week or Player of the Week. If anyone has any suggestions, that'd be great for what we could name this segment. But basically, the name is kind of self-explanatory. Me and Jack will just pick a player or team that we thought performed really well this week and basically just explain why we feel that way and maybe give some stats or whatever to back up our idea on that. So, Jack, I'll let you start this one off. Who do you think was the player or the team that stood out to you the most this week?
Yeah, so about right before we started recording this, I actually had someone else in mind. I had someone from the NBA in mind. But then I saw on social media that Cade Cunningham for Oklahoma State and men's basketball dropped 40 points. He had 11 rebounds and 1 assist, and they took down the number 7 team, Oklahoma, in an in-state rivalry game in overtime. Final score is 94-90, and Cade Cunningham really performed.
Yeah, that definitely is a big performance. Personally, I'm going to go with a team of the week rather than a player of the week. And going back to our first segment of today, the Lakers versus Jazz game, I really think that the Jazz were a very standout performance this week against the Lakers. I think they shot like 47% from three as a team, which is insane. I mean, to have a stat line like that as an overall team, not like you don't have like a player that's a 3-point specialist or something that is, hitting those shots, but as a team overall, I think it really just showed their depth and their performance against the Lakers, who obviously were missing Anthony Davis, but are still one of the best teams in the league. To blow them out by 20 like that and to just kind of almost embarrass them, honestly. I mean, that game was an absolute blowout in my opinion. So just I think that's my performance of the week was the Utah Jazz.
And that concludes Player of the Week / Team of the Week, a segment that we had not decided to name yet. It's been a great first episode of Between the Lines and a great experience.
Yeah, for those of you who made it through the entire podcast, thank you for sticking around. We'll hopefully be able to, keep producing these podcasts. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to let you, Jack. But I think this was a great experience and something that we'll definitely be looking forward to continue with in the future.